Alright, so we're heading into our third inspection on this hive for the year. I am very excited about what I saw. Just get this stuff taken off here and we'll get started. Burlap was a little moist. I'm just going to hang that out while we're working on the bees. Hopefully it'll dry up a little bit. Notice here I really like this box idea, this Vivaldi style where it keeps the bees from flying up. It's so nice to just not have to worry about them in the way here. So let's break this stuff off. Break into this hive. I ended up tilting that up to let the bees fly out so they don't keep flying up hitting that screen. But it doesn't look like there's big numbers. I pulled the camera over here in a second to try to show you down in between the frames. They actually are doing really good. They have a good population. But it's hard to tell with the looking down the center there. So let's get started. I take this first frame out here, just put this to the side, pretty standard, normal stuff. Have a girl trying to get squished on my hive tool. Let it move her out of the way. Alright, not much, just comb. Set that to the side. And here we're going to see something that when I come across this, it's not worth, I automatically just take the box apart. There's no point in rolling this. And so what we have here is we have all this burr comb. They're actually building it up to build drones, which is perfectly fine. But when I'm doing a hive inspection, there's no point in just sliding the frames across. You'll end up killing so many bees, and then they get upset. And this is an urban setting, so we want to keep them happy. So I just toss this frame in and set this to the side. A few little puffs of smoke. Let them know I'm breaking their home open. And then look at all that goodness. There is drones galore. I end up pulling the camera over here in a second to show. Of course, all these drones are lost, but there's never a loss. What I'm trying to show you here is, although you end up looking at my foot for most of the time, as I'm rolling these drones around, and I am checking for mites. And this is the perfect opportunity. I mean, when you break boxes apart, especially this time of year, they're gone anyways. But if there's not any mites in there, that's a good sign. That means that things are doing good. If you're starting to see mites in your drones, you might want to check your levels and do a mite wash. Maybe do some treatments. All these bees were in this yard were taken well care of in the fall and then early or midwinter. I also did a treatment. Looking at it, I have some help today. This is my partner in crime. We usually work all these bees together, but due to scheduling, we can't always work the hives at the same time. Alright. Pull out these first couple frames. I got them stuck down pretty good. Honey, honey, honey. These first 3 frames are pretty much honey. It's alright. There is a little bit of a nectar flow going on. Nothing worth collecting, but that is why they're not using up much of that. Actually, you can kind of see on those frames that center section would be some of the newer stuff. It's a little bit different color of the cappings, a little bit wider. That one's just full of nectar. Like I said, it's not a big flow. It's nothing that I'm expecting to stick around. That's why I'm not worried about it. I'm sure they'll end up using that up along with all this honey that's in here. Um, and this honey is just sugar honey, so I want to get it used up. And I know they will. So, and really and truly, when it comes down to it, when it's time for me to split this hive, if there's any of that stuff left over, I'll just be putting it into splits. Taking a little bit of time. We're talking about what we're going to do. There's so many bees in here, and they're looking really good, so we're talking about grabbing a box of frames, built out comb, just give them room. There's a nice brood frame. That previous frame had eggs on one side and pollen on the other. Trying to show that rainbow effect here, where she has multiple layers, where as the brood nests grew, they kept it small to what they could handle, and then they just keep working it out, and then she keeps coming back and relaying it up, so it's looking great. Her beautiful frame, capped brood. Unfortunately, because lighting is so difficult, it's really hard. I try to show some things on the camera, but it's just so hard to get down in there and look at them. But like this one here, I'm showing you this little spot, and I ended up, I believe I tried to blow on the bees to get them to move out a little bit, but it's just full of larvae. Like there is not an empty. Inside that brood area, there is not an empty spot in the hive. The queen is just going crazy, which is good. That's fantastic. It means that they're going to do quite well this year. Just have to keep eye on them, just make sure they don't swarm. I kind of speeding up the film in between these frames because I take a little bit of time. Kind of really make sure, see what I'm looking at. I'm also looking for any signs of illness, any sort of deformed wings or anything that looks unhealthy or sick. It's really not 100% necessary. I know this hive is healthy. I know it's strong. Here I'm kind of pointing out some drones I see. If I can find them. Oh, there! Look at them go. They're not flying yet. Which is fine. I am doing splits later this week, and they are flying, and so to me that's an indication that it's really time to start doing splits is when they start flying. We'll see here in another minute or so once we go through this top box. Definitely why we added space, and hopefully give us a couple more weeks. This hive is big and strong, and I could definitely split it, and it would do very well this year with no problem, but I don't want to, I want to give it a chance to build up some more. So here within a few weeks, this thing is going to be booming, even though we add a third box on here. Those are just honey frames, nectar and pollen on that one side, which you can't see. And then we flip it over, and there is eggs galore. Every single cell completely laid up. Perfectly fine. It's fantastic. And this next frame here, this is the reason that we needed to add another box. Just because they are ready for another box, but they're actually doing some prep for swarming. People think swarming happens just right away, and it doesn't. They make drones first. Once they start having drones, then they make these cups. This is all progression towards swarming, and so if you stay on top of it, you can make sure that they don't do that. But I take swarming as a good opportunity to make splits, because if they're healthy enough to feel like they need to swarm, then they're definitely healthy enough to be making splits with them. And so we're going to point out the queen here, right there. Just looking for any spot she can find a delay. That's the last frame I look at here. I know where the queen's at. Makes me happy. Push this all back together. And I'm going to go back to this other half, put it back together, and clean the bottom off of this this other half, or this top half. So here we're talking about frames, which ones we want to put in there. Just make sure they're I want to make sure there's space in there, but also that they, have those resources, because I have a bunch with resources on them. I might as well give them to a strong hive that's going to use them. Don't want to slow them down anyway. So we're going to tilt this up and look through here. Just going to end up scraping. So we'll smoke the bees off of them. Don't want to crush anybody, don't want to upset anybody. And so taking off these drones, that will slow them down just a little bit, make it easier for me to put it back without crushing anybody, and make it so they don't have to clean it up. Because when you end up breaking up those swarm cells, it just makes a mess. And then if you don't clean it up, then they end up spending a lot of time having to rip it out and rebuild it. If I just rip it out, then they can just rebuild it. So, yep. You notice a little bit of bee poop on the front there. We had a cold snap about 2 weeks ago, and it just got so cold, like it didn't even get above freezing for a day, and then the nights were really cold for several days. And they had been out foraging, and so a lot of the hives have a little bit of that, and must have just got some sort of GI tract. I didn't notice any of it inside the hive, so I think we're good on that front. Let's get these set up here. Let you see or move that up so you can see the top there. And just give them some smoke, push them out of the way, don't want to crush anybody. Because these frames, so I'm tilting them up, I'm looking at the bottom, seeing how bad they are, make sure there's not anything that's going to crush anybody. Set them on. Readjust the camera again. So we got some honey, and this is just, it's sugar honey. It'll get used up. Here, they've got 2 full ones on the sides, and then these other ones are just partially built, and have some honey in them, sugar honey. So they'll use them up. They'll end up using all that up because there's a lot of empty frames up here too, or partially frames, and that queen, she's gonna come right up here and just lay this entire box up, which is no problem. And those last 2 there are just honey, so I just left them. Time to close them up. This is really important here. You really need to get those frames tight together. A lot of people, when I help them, you can't get any of the frames out because they don't squish them tight, and so they put propolis in between there. And I still have to clean them out, but in between them every now and again. But man, it's so hard to pull out frames that are just not tightened together. And put that box back on. I'm just going to get this put back together. we'll end up getting back into this hive. We'll give them a couple weeks. Nothing terrible to worry about. And I have a bunch of other splits I'm going to have to work on. Checked out every hive in this yard, and here and there, just doing fantastic. So I'm excited. Just a little bit behind some of my other places. Thanks for watching, and have a great week.